But don't worry, this will be like a super formal thing. I'm just not that person.
Okay.
You're good. You're good. You're
So
good.
yeah.
You do
Hi
this all the time.
everybody. I know we're live, but my computer is slow. Oh, yay, it's coming through. And have a cat.
Which ones?
It's my light song next to me.
Excellent. Miles may be demanding entry. So it honestly depends on if food is enough to distract him, which it usually is.
My door is closed, but hopefully there will be no cats yelling at the other side.
I mean, if Layla wants to, grace the stream with her presence,
Mm-hmm.
like that's for Leia, okay. If she wants to do that.
That's awesome.
Anyways, hi everybody. My name is Shay. This is Shay Geeks Out, obviously. And today we are talking with the lovely and amazing Jen Deluca.
That's me.
That's me.
Melissa, why don't you briefly reintroduce yourself to my audience, and then we'll turn the time over to Jen to tell us a little bit more about her.
Okay. Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm the author of You, Me, and Our Heartstrings, which is coming out on May 31st, 2022. And the reason that I'm here is because me and Shay are two really close friends. And upon us being blessed with Well Matched, we texted each other our reactions. And it was one of the best.
Honestly, this text chain is one of those things that people would put on TikTok and laugh at. Like, that is the epicness of this text chain.
I need to hear more about this.
Oh, we will chat all about it if you want.
Trust. It was a delight. I was texting her at like 6 a.m. and
I was texting her at like 11 o'clock at night, so it's like 1 a.m. for her, and I'm just like, Melissa!
And at one point I had to stop, put the book down, and record a video of my reaction because I'm like, Mitch literally just said this. It was delivered so perfectly. Mm-hmm. I cannot. I cannot. So we will definitely go into specifics with you later. But
lines like this. I'm planning on dating Coach Malone. Shay, I am once again deceased. This is the kind of text chain we have.
Aw, that's awesome.
We love this book. And we've both been big fans of this series for a very long time. So Jen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, my name is Jen. I originally grew up in Virginia, around the East Coast. I lived in Florida for 25 years. And then last year during the pandemic, we packed up our lives and our 3 cats and we moved to Arizona. So I'm still getting used to that part of my life. My debut novel was Well Met, which came out in 2019. And since then, I had Well Played published last year, and then Well Matched came out last week. It's my first published series that was inspired by my time volunteering as a tavern wench at a Renaissance fair in Florida.
That was actually going to be one of our questions. So.
Yeah. And I've been writing all my life, and it's sort of just one of those things that's always been a hobby of mine and a passion of mine. And I'm still really kind of stunned that it's now a thing that I get to do. So it's kind of great.
That's great. So I have a very interesting question. You have 3 very distinct heroines in this series. Which one would you say is the most like yourself out of the 3?
Okay, so everybody has a little bit of me, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And that's to be expected, I think.
And the heroes, honestly, have a little bit of me. Well, if Mitch is Mitch, he's his own piece. But everybody else has a little piece of me. I would have said Emily, because everybody that knows me in real life, like all, old friends of mine and stuff, when they read Well Met, they would text me and they were like, this feels like you're reading it to me. Like, that's your voice, which I thought was really, which makes sense for a debut novel that's written in first person. That it's almost easier to fall back on your own voice. I'm very sarcastic. I'm very snarky. I curse a lot, just like Emily. But writing the third one, writing Well Matched, I realized that April, I think, is really the most like me because her voice came to me so easily. She's over 40. I'm over 40. She definitely has some anxiety, which I do too, which I don't think I really realized how bad it was until I saw somebody tagged me in a review or something and mentioned a content warning for anxiety for Well Matched, which I think is totally valid. But I didn't even think of it that way. I just thought, well, I'll give her, some of my...
Yeah, specifically in regards to her former marriage and her contact with him again.
Right.
Because he decides all of a sudden he wants to be part of his daughter's life.
And
what inspired that plot line?
Well, without getting too personal, my father's parents divorced when he was very small, and he didn't. My husband didn't have contact with his father growing up. So it was something that, that we've talked about. And I actually didn't meet my father-in-law until my grandfather-in-law died. I met him at the funeral after I was married. So it was very bizarre to meet somebody that, is biologically a part of your husband's life that you don't know. It was just a bizarre circumstance for me. Mm-hmm. And it was something that that I just sort of wanted to sort of bring in and think about how that would be to have somebody that's very much a part of, your child, but has no part of your actual life. So so that was kind of the inspiration of it, and then just the idea of bringing him back would be just such a wrench in April's life, and would be, would be a way for Mitch to help her find her strength in that moment. So
right. And this might be me getting a little personal here, but I am in my second marriage with an amazing human. And my first husband was a lot of things that I didn't think he was when I married him. Mm-hmm. And so I think I personally related to the anxiety and almost PTSD that April had mm-hmm. from that first relationship, and the things that she held on to that really weren't part of her, but were things she was told about her from another person that she internalized, because I did the exact same thing. So absolutely. I find April to be a very relatable character just because I've been through that. So I think mm-hmm. out of the three heroines, I'm somewhere between Stacy and April personally, because I'm a big chubby girl and I love my chubby girl life, and Stacy mm-hmm. lives her life and I love her for it. But I have that side of me that's very April. And so I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle there.
That totally makes sense. And you know what? And I love Stacy living her chubby girl life. And it was really one of those things that I kind of thought, I kind of didn't think about like mentioning, like when I was promoting Well Played, that it had fat rep, because it was, to me, it was almost, I don't want to say subtle, but I didn't want to make a big deal about it. It's just who she was.
You didn't want her to only be about living her
Yeah,
life.
It wasn't about whether or not she was a fat girl. It was just she is a fat girl.
Stacy is Stacy.
And she's fine with that. And it's not something that she I won't say if she obsesses over it, but there are times in that second book where, she mentions feeling uncomfortable in her own skin every so often.
And I think any big girl feels that.
Yeah, especially when she doesn't have control over the situation of mm-hmm. how she looks. But I didn't want it to be about that. So it was something that I wrote that for her character. And then like at some point I thought, well, maybe I should mention this, like when I'm talking about the book itself, maybe I should mention that she's plus sized. But yeah, it was
yeah, Marissa, I'm not sure you heard earlier, but Jen was talking about how there's a little bit of her in each of her heroines as well.
Yeah. And then I also, the other part of Stacy that is me is just, I'm not into PSLs, but just how Stacy unabashedly loves the things that she loves. That was something that came to me a little bit later, where I think I grew up kind of in that, well, I don't have to like pink, and I don't have to, like cute girl things. I'm going to be different, like one of those kinds of people, like I'm not like other girls and that kind of thing.
Oh, the I'm not like other girls trope.
Yeah. I don't know. I think sometimes when you mature, you sort of realize, well, you know what? It's okay if I like pink. It's okay if I like my rose gold iPhone or my pumpkin spice latte.
Or my flower shirt that makes me look like a grandma, but I don't care anyway.
Yeah, who cares? If this makes me happy, then it makes me happy.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I loved about Stacy, because like it didn't click until you said she just unabashedly loves the things, and I'm like, that is me. Like I mean, I'm a mixture, Melissa, honestly. I mean, my wall is enough of an indicator. I'm not going to adjust my camera because it'll take forever. But all of the art is from anime conventions. So it's like Stacy is like I relate a lot to Stacy, but I also relate a lot to Emily, because like I'm a fixer. I want to fix everyone, but mm-hmm. I also am unabashedly passionate about Shakespeare. So like it's because like whenever I reread Well Met, whenever they argue about Shakespeare, that has me rolling every single time, because I'm like, it also makes me think of this amazing Renfrew performer, Shakespeare Approves, who performs condensed versions of Shakespeare plays mm-hmm. that are humorous and accessible. Mm-hmm. So his version of Macbeth involves everyone being killed by fluffy Beanie Baby kittens, and it's amazing. And also his Hamlet is a Christmas special, which is,
oh gosh,
which I'm just like, I have not seen that in person. My friend played Hamlet though, and I'm like,
oh my god,
you have no idea
That's
how much I
hilarious.
need to be
like a very Hamlet Christmas or something. Oh my god.
Oh my
like
gosh.
honestly, if he because he travels around, so if you ever see him,
yeah,
honestly,
I'll keep an eye out.
Yeah, because the way he gets the crowd warmed up and easy is the most ingenious thing I've ever seen. He has this thing, I'm a little teapot, to the tune of Queen's We Will Rock You, and he manages to do it. And I'm like, that is impossible, but good on you, sir.
No, that's amazing. Like, I'm going to have to hunt down a video of this because I'm sure it exists somewhere.
He's everywhere. Go and check him out. He's everywhere.
That's awesome. No, I was actually really, the Shakespeare stuff that I threw into Well Met was one of those things that I was like, when I wrote Well Met, I was amusing myself, you know, like I was just write something that I thought would be fun. And so there are so many, like, I don't want to say inside jokes, but like Easter eggs of my brain. Yeah, I grew up loving Shakespeare. So I put in, you know, I did like the sonnet scene was something that I was like, somebody's going to make me take that out. But, and they never did. And then I think I even the Shakespeare, the authorship question, little like argument / flirtation they have at the beginning was something I put in like a second draft. I think that got added later. But I had a high school theater mentor who was very much into that whole thing, that whole Edward de Vere actually wrote Shakespeare and everything. And she was very, very into that. And I find that fascinating. I really do. I think it's a little crap too, but like Emily does, and like Simon does, but I think it's very fascinating that people can find so much quote proof in, you know, in anything. And how do you solve a mystery that's that old? You know, I just think it's amazing. So I just think it's really, really interesting. It's one of those things that I sort of seek out when I see books about it or something like that. I think it's really interesting to read about. So yeah, I put that nerdiness in my brain into that book. Nice.
So what is your favorite Shakespeare play?
Probably Midsummer Night's Dream. When I was very, very young, probably about 8 or so, I was homesick with a cold, and I think my mom was probably sick of me watching cartoons or whatever, but she showed up with this big book and she said, okay, we're going to read this play together. It's got fairies in it. You'll like it. So, it was Midsummer Night's Dream. And so we sat there and we read the entire play out loud. And if I didn't, and she would, you know, stop to make sure I understood things and explain things to me, or we'd figure them out together. And, you know, by the end of the day, I had read a Shakespeare play and I was so proud of myself.
That's amazing.
It's just this really, you know, vivid memory I have of my mother. And so it's probably my favorite play. I like the comedies, you know, Much Ado is also really one of my other favorites.
Much Ado is my all-time favorite.
Much Ado is,
yeah. It's
Beatrice and Benedict are just two characters that you can't not love their banter. Like it is just perfect. The epitome of perfect banter.
And the fact that their banter, I mean, transcends the centuries. I mean,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Like it was written how many hundreds of years ago, and you can read it today, and it's still hilarious.
Right.
It's honestly amazing because my local, I say local like everyone has it, but like my local Shakespeare festival, who has now moved.
Well, there's one a lot closer to Jen now because there's one in Cedar City in Utah every fall.
Oh, nice.
Oh, cool! I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest in the nation. I've heard.
Wow. Nice.
They'll always do one play that's not Shakespeare, and then they'll do a bunch of the different Shakespeares.
Amazing. Nice. But anyway, with Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival, what they did when they did Much Ado, it like they had it at the Boscobel, so it's near West Point. So you're in open air. You're in an open air tent, and then everyone is and then everyone is in the dirt. That is the stage. And during the scenes where they're in the gardens and they're overhearing, oh my god, like she's in love with it. Oh my god, he's in love with it. Like the thing is, they had actors like they had the Benedict or Beatrice, depending on the scene, hiding in the bleachers that surrounded the stage.
Oh, nice.
And then at one point, like for dramatics, they had someone literally fall off of the back of the bleachers onto sandbags. Oh, and it's like, it's that sort of thing that I'm just like that sort of humor is so good. And I mean, like, let's just be honest with ourselves. Simon is very reminiscent of Benedict when he realizes that he's got it bad for Beatrice.
He is. You're right. You're so right. That's so funny. I hadn't even really thought of it that way, but that's so true. Where he realizes it and just like, oh my god, I'm so screwed.
Yeah, he's positively ruined. I forget who said it, but someone said that he is like Simon was positively wrecked by Emily when he realized oh,
Yeah.
wait, like, I genuinely love this person. And my first interaction with her was to be like, yeah, you didn't do this part properly, and that annoys me. Fix it.
You
And
didn't fill out this form right. I know. That was like my kind of like antithesis, like opposite of a meet cute, is just that meet annoyed, where you meet that person for the first time and you just have no idea that that's going to be your person, you know. Like all he's focused on, you know, getting all these damn forms and making sure they're all filled out right, and who the hell is this new person who filled it out wrong, you know. And
and then so, how dare she pick a name similar to her own? Like, what is this? Where's the creativity? I'm personally offended.
He has no idea what's about to hit him, you know. At the
end. And that is just done so well. It's pun intended. But
so what is individually your favorite thing about each of your heroines and then each of your heroes?
Oh my God. Oh God.
So like, what's your favorite trait of Emily and your favorite trait of Simon?
Emily gives so much of herself, that she's just such a kind person. And her, you know, if somebody has a problem, you know, the first thing that comes to her mind is, how can I help? How can I make it better? You know, and I think that's such a wonderful trait for someone to have, you know, even when she's, you know, kind of towards the end of Well Met, where she's trying to figure out her own life and she doesn't know, you know, if she and Simon have a future. She doesn't know if she has a future where she is, you know, when Chris, you know, tells her that her mother's had a stroke, her immediate thought is, oh my God, what can I do? You know, and her own, you know, trauma is put to the side. And I think that just makes her such a kind-hearted person. So that I absolutely love that about Emily. Simon is just Simon. He's such a nerd. I love him. And you know,
I think for me with Simon, it's his duality, where he can go so far into his pirate character, but he's still Simon over here.
He's a reserved English teacher, like at his heart, but he's also like the English teacher is on the left side of his heart, and then the pirate is on the right side, and they're still the same person.
Well, I think he definitely, you know, especially in the first book, I think that he definitely gets better at it, you know, kind of as the time goes on in subsequent, you know, books and adventures and everything. But especially in the first one, he doesn't think that he can have that pirate side of him all the time. So he just kind of thinks during those weeks that he's at the Run Fair, he can be this guy. And, you know, he can be that guy that gets the girl, and he can be, you know, bold, and he can be, you know, all flirty and all these things, because he feels like in real life, nobody wants that from him. And that's such a sad thought. There's this one little moment in Well Met that when I wrote it, I broke my own heart. When she first comes to his house, and she, you know, walks into his house, and she sees his kitchen table with one placemat on it. When I wrote that detail, I just thought, oh my God, that's so freaking sad. And I broke my own heart. Just the fact that
I remember when I read that, I was like, wow.
It like underscored
that moment of loneliness.
Yeah.
In something as simple as only one place setting.
And
I feel like that's something you've really done well with your books, as you give that moment of clarifying something with a character that they're not willing to say out loud by something surrounding them. Like the colors of April's house, and taking all of that away in a process, and just those little hints of symbolisms of things that they're not willing to reveal to anybody else, but their person understands that, and you as the reader understand that because you understand the character that is their person.
Yeah.
And the fact that that in illustrating portions of characters that they don't necessarily want to have be front and center, you intrinsically put that in, because the fact that Simon had the forethought, because it's who he is, to even set out a placement.
Oh yeah.
Like instead of having just relying on paper plates.
Yeah. And April, he's going to use a coaster. He's going to use
he is. He is. And let's be honest, he probably has a box of Shakespeare insult band-aids in his bathroom.
Oh God, yeah. He absolutely does. Probably some students gave them to him as a Christmas present or something, like as a joke. Oh, these are useful though, so I'll keep these. Yeah.
And I mean, speaking of Simon being a teacher, I am still like, I would still be up for an eventual short story where he teaches where he teaches his class on Zoom because of the pandemic.
Oh my God. I pictured him trying to do that and just doing a lot of swearing. you know,
just muting his own mic and like turning off his camera, and then Emily.
See, he would be stumbling to mute his mic, and he would be cursing up a storm. That's what he would be doing.
Right, exactly, and it would just be be terrible.
All right. So, what are your favorite traits about Stacy and about Daniel?
Gosh, so something that I love about Daniel is that he definitely puts others above himself, and that is, that's how he is in his professional life. So I think that spills over into his personal life, because his professional life has been, his cousins are the talented ones. His cousins are the musicians, but his cousins couldn't plan their way out of a paper bag. So he got roped in, because he's an organized person, to be the guy to kind of manage them, to herd those cats. And he does
herd the cats. That's a perfect description.
That's his life. And that's, and it's something that he's good at. So he's like, sure, I'll do it. But it definitely, it makes for a life that he's in the background, where he's not the one that's front and center. He's not the one that's demanding attention. So that spilled over into his interactions with Stacy. Especially during the whole mistaken identity portion of things with her.
Were you worried about that, using that trope, by the way? Just a curious question.
I was. It was something that I wanted. What I wanted to do with that was to take the Cyrano de Bergerac story and make it from the point of view of the recipient of the letters, as opposed to the people who are doing the wooing. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the original idea. And then as I was kind of writing the first draft, I went, oh my God, this is a catfishing story. Like this isn't good. This is really bad. So it was really hard for me to kind of thread that needle to make him still a hero, and not a jerk. And I think, and I think probably there are some people who say that I did not successfully do that, and that is totally fine. But I feel like that sometimes if you find yourself lying about something and you think, oh, I should come clean about this, and then there's just the kind of that moment and it passes and it's too late. Like there's
and
no
especially
point.
Where Daniel's always put himself below other people. He was so afraid of losing her.
He was so afraid of losing her, and he was just
afraid.
When it first happened, he was just, when she first, emails and he thinks she's talking to him, he has this moment of, oh my God, like this is the one thing I've ever wanted, and it's happening, and he can't believe it's happening, and it's wonderful. And then all of a sudden, when he does realize, oh, she didn't mean me, and he tries to come clean, but then he realizes if he does come clean, it's going to break her heart. So he thinks, well, I'll carry it on a little bit more. I'll tell her soon, but when you caught up in some sort of a lie, and I think this kind of thing can happen in different kinds of situations, where you kind of, that moment passes and you realize there's really not a point where you can go, oh, by the way, I've been lying to you about this for 6 months now, like there's just, you're kind of screwed at that point. And he knows that he's screwed at that point, and he's just, all he can do at this point is write it out. So, he made that one mistake. He made that one mistake and didn't come clean when he should have. But I think that he's definitely a very beta hero, which I think is something that isn't done a whole lot. And I just felt like that was who he was. I felt like Stacy, in that relationship, Stacy's the strong one. Stacy is the go-getter. So
I would agree with that.
I thought it kind of made more sense for him to kind of, I don't want to say give up on them, but for him to kind of, in his heart and his mind, he thought the best thing to do was to let her go, because he thought that she deserved to be happy, and he thought he wasn't the one who could do that. So the best thing to do was to just let her go so she could find the person that could make her happy, even if it wasn't him, which I think is a very strong thing to do personally.
Agreed.
And for the sake of that story, I felt like it was much more important for Stacy to be the one to pursue him at the end, which is a little different, but it's just kind of the way the story happened. It's the way the characters are. So, and I felt like I couldn't really change that. So,
and you've mentioned before that you very much admire Stacy's strength and her ability to just love what she loves.
Yeah, exactly. She's just she's just fun. She's just a fun person.
She really is.
And she knows Daniel, like the pairings complement each other so well, because you have Simon and Emily, whose root of their relationship is animosity and Shakespeare, and then you have Daniel and Stacy, who work so well together, because Stacy is a lot of things Daniel isn't, and Daniel is a lot of things she isn't, and it's
exactly.
They're the perfect puzzle pieces.
Yeah, and then having them together, it's perfect. And I'm still not over chapter 16 and 17 of Well Played. Like, I'm still not over them. And it's because I'm like, oh, I know what's happening. I'm prepared. It's fine. And then I read them and I'm like, no,
I'm not fine.
I'm not prepared.
Not fine. I'm not fine.
But in the best possible way.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right, Mitch and April, what are your favorite things about them?
Oh my God. One thing, honestly, this probably applies to both of them, which made them so much fun to write, is that the both of them know who they are, for better or for worse. They're both very comfortable in their own skin. April knows who she is as a person. She knows she's not a joiner. She knows that she's an introvert. She knows the things that make her happy and the things that she likes to do. And she's not going to change, really, you know? And I think Mitch is the same way. You know, Mitch knows who he is. He knows his strengths. He knows his weaknesses, and he's fine with who he is. And basically, you know, if you don't like it, that's too bad. There's the door. And I think that the two of them are very much similar in that respect, which I think was one thing that makes them really great together. And I think that the two of them complement each other so well. You know, almost like, despite what April thinks, I think, you know, at first, obviously she's going to be very resistant to the whole idea of being with him. But,
well, that's also because, you know, she's 40, he's just a little over 30.
Yeah.
So of course she's not going to think she's good enough for this hunky early 30s guy. When she's like, I'm done having kids. My kid's grown. I'm not having anymore. You deserve a chance to have kids with somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And
well,
that was a conversation in that book that I wasn't expecting, but as a happily married adult who does not have kids, I greatly appreciate, actually.
Same.
Because not everybody is going to have kids for one reason or another, and that's okay. Exactly.
I am a very happily married person who does not have kids, and I will say that it's going to be pretty. I'm not going to guarantee I will never write people having kids, but it doesn't compute to me as a human being, a happily ever after equaling children. So to me, a happily ever after equals a dog. So I'm, you know, or a cat, or several cats, or several dogs. So that to me is my HEA. So
your HEA is your partner and an animal.
Yeah, it really is.
Nothing bad about that.
At least one animal. Yeah.
As mine readjusts next to me.
and mine is occupied somewhere not in the room. So it's
same. Yeah.
It's good because he's old and demanding. So he'd demand entry. And I'd be like, fine, it's fine. But like also, like I'm currently wearing the Roller Creek Ren Fair souvenir t-shirt from Blissfully Bookish. And the fact that my junior/senior year of high school is when the Ren Fair happened, canonically, I could have been a part of its planning committee. So the fact that like
you could have.
Yeah, so the fact that I'm like reading books about people who are my own, because I am Mitch's age. Granted, he turns 32, but I am Mitch's age. So I'm just like, I relate a lot to a lot of things in this whole series, and I'm like, oh Lord, okay, like, just like okay.
When she created those t-shirts, we had a conversation about it where she was like, you know, when did the Ren Fair start? And I was like, that's a really good question. And I, you know, Well Met, they talk about it being the 10th year. So I think that we just kind of decided, well, we'll just say that Well Met, that takes place in 2019, since that's when it was released. So then we just went backwards with the numbers.
Nice.
There you go.
But it's still, I was talking about it with Shay earlier, and it still hit me. I'm like, I could have been on the planning committee for this.
You could have. Like, yeah, if you turned any interest, Sean would have gotten you into it. Yeah.
I mean, yes. So he doesn't have to ask me twice about anything. So yes. I mean, yes, obviously I would have.
Yeah. So with that said, did you always plan to give Mitch a book? Or did that come later?
Well, okay. I wrote Well Met. When I was writing Well Met, I was just writing it. I wasn't planning a series. But then when we sent it out on submission, it was just sort of one of those things of, you know, well, just in case somebody wants to know if it has series potential, you know, come up with some other pitches. So yeah, I intended, anybody who was a supporting character, I was like, I'm going to give them a book if that's going to be, you know, what I'm going to do. But my original thought when I was first kind of brainstorming what to do with everybody was to put Stacy and Mitch together. because it would be sort of a friends to lovers situation.
And you can kind of see that in Well Met a little bit.
Yeah, where she's almost like, because she was a couple of years younger, so she probably had a crush on him, because he was the hot guy, he was the hot senior boy when she was a sophomore, So I thought,
and then he's running around without a shirt on and just a kilt, and we all fall in love anyway.
She's always like, "Oh my God, he's so hot," But it's very brotherly, I think, too. Yeah. So my idea was a friends to lovers sort of situation for them, but I was like, okay, well, that's the obvious idea. What's the less obvious idea? And so then that was to put Mitch with the prickly, introverted, sarcastic older sister of Emily. And as soon as I thought about that, I just laughed out loud, because she's absolutely not, on paper, she is absolutely not the person for him, and so I just thought that would be really funny. So that was what I pitched for them. And then when it was time to actually write the book, though, I just kind of was like, oh my God, what did I do to myself? Like, now I have to make him a hero, because he's been the comic relief for 2 books. He's just been that fun comic relief character that's hot. And now I have to actually like give him depth and flesh him out and make him an actual romance hero. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but
I actually think the way you tackled that was brilliantly done, because especially around his family, he just kind of plays that airheaded jock, but he really is a very smart, very intelligent man. And his family will never see him as that, because he didn't choose the traditional route.
Exactly.
Of, becoming a doctor or something that is prestigious in their eyes. Where I personally am the daughter of a teacher, and I respect teachers above any other profession, because no other profession exists without teachers.
That's so true.
So,
that's very true.
Honestly, teacher always get the raw end of the deal, but anybody who chooses to be a teacher as their career, I will always admire, because I had a dad and a mom who always worked, so my dad could do what he loved. So, I greatly appreciate teachers and the fact that they are paid nothing, especially where I live. Utah, they're paid like the worst, even though they have the biggest classes. I could rant, but I won't. This is not the discussion for that.
That's okay. But yeah, I think that almost, I want to say that makes him almost smarter than the rest of his family, but where he's just like, I have a good life and I like it. And, why pursue these other things that aren't going to make me happy?
Right. He's like, I get to work out. I get to hang with kids. I get to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But at the end of the night, I get to go home and I get to do my own thing.
Yeah.
I don't have to run around chasing my own kids, let alone chasing everybody else's kids.
There was this tweet that went around, I think when I was writing it, that really like helped me inform Mitch's character. This person was like, my gym teacher asked, like, who do you think is the smartest teacher in our high school? And we're all guessing things like the physics teacher and the chemistry teacher. And he said, no, it's me, because I get paid the same and I get to play dodgeball all day. And I was like, that is freaking hilarious. And that is exactly something.
But it's so true.
But it's so true. And
my dad chose to teach 6th grade. And he gets to be a 12-year-old in a grown man's body all day long. I mean, he'll command the respect when he needs to in his classroom, of course. But other than that, he gets to be really creative and create all these STEM-related games to get the kids engaged in their learning. And he loves it. And he's so good at it.
I mean, one of my best friends is a robotics teacher. So, like, she teaches kids how to build robots. And, like, that's not a
bad thing. Yeah.
No, exactly. It's all about finding that thing that gives you joy and lets you be yourself at the same time.
Exactly. And also not to have too much pressure. Like, there's also a scene in Well Matched where during Caitlin's graduation where Simon's obviously going to have to give a speech during graduation. So then April asks Mitch, do you have to give a speech too? And he's like, no. He's like, I don't let them know I'm smart enough. If they let you. Right. Simon's a dumbass because they know he's smart. So he has to give a speech. I just shut up, basically. And they don't think I'm smart enough, and I'm not going to do it.
And the thing with Simon is that the thing between Simon and Mitch is that that Simon is perfectly fine instructing kids about ionic pentameter and stuff like that.
Totally.
But being in public,
a public speaking thing is a totally different animal.
Especially where him and Emily are concerned in Well Played, you can tell he is shaking in his boots. For the entirety of chapter 16, he's like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And then Mitch just has to basically be like, dude, look at her. Look at her. And so I
think that goes back to part of Simon's duality, right? Because when he's the pirate, when he's able to be someone else, he has no problem. He has no problem speaking in public. He has no problem being that character, you know, giving grand speeches, whatever. But when he does it as Simon, as himself, not teaching, because even teaching is kind of playing a role in a way. You know, if you're teaching kids, you know, about iambic pentameter or whatever. But when he's having to like be in public as Simon,
he doesn't have that confidence.
Yeah, he doesn't have that confidence. And I think that's been an interesting thing to write, I think.
Whereas Mitch in public, he has all the confidence in the world. But if he's backed into a corner, like with his family who doesn't respect his choices, then he gets a little smaller. Which April is just like, no, not happening. I'm not letting this happen.
Yeah, I mean, April's just infuriated. She just can't believe it, right? Because he's the most like confident, you know, out there guy. And so, you know, when it's obvious that his family doesn't really respect him or his life, and he gets a little smaller, and she's just kind of like, what the hell is going on? And he's just like, just let it go, because, you know, he knows it's going to roll off eventually. And eventually.
And then she's Mama Bear. She's like, nope, I'm going to lay down the law right now.
April's not having it. April is
She's like, no, this is not how this is going to go. And I love her for it.
I do too. I was so proud of her when she did.
Right? The second that happened, I'm like, yes, queen. We'll hang here.
And like, as someone completely unrelated, as someone who has a dairy sensitivity, I would risk it for mac and cheese and grilled cheese.
No. Like, I grew up with my grandma's homemade mac and cheese. I've tried to duplicate it. I cannot. Like, I still love
there are certain recipes that grandmas have that you try to make, and they're just not quite there. Yeah, Grandma Malone was very much based on partially on my own grandmother and partially on my husband's grandmother, who was an incredible cook. So so I can see both of those very, very strong women in my head when I write Grandma Malone. She was a lot of fun.
And now cheese translates
to a character to write. I liked her a lot.
Nice.
Right.
And now cheese translates to a little bit of April and Mitch's love. Food in general becomes their love language.
It does.
Which is just so sweet. And it's like that. It's such an obvious thing, but to them, it's just, no, you haven't eaten here. Just, I'm making you something. And yeah, it's cheese and bread, but it's going to be food. And it's the best thing that April's ever had.
Well, I mean, a grilled cheese sandwich when you're drunk is the best thing ever. I mean, there's not much better that you can do than a grilled cheese sandwich, but maybe tacos or something. But yeah, I think they're definitely a food is love language kind of couple. I think April is a food is love language kind of person.
I would agree with that.
And well played when everybody started coming over to her house to kind of plan things for the Renaissance Fair and plan things for the wedding.
She loves to feed them,
making big dinners for them, and it was sort of, I see April and Caitlin grew up together as that little family of two. So I saw this sort of stuff happening, for April as almost as an excuse for her to be like, well, finally I'm just going to cook big things that she doesn't usually get to do. So, she's going to bitch about it the whole time. Like, oh my God, all these people are in my house. What time are you guys leaving? Are you coming over again next week? What the hell?
Because the introvert side of her doesn't like having all the people there.
Right.
But the cooking part of her is like, let me feed all of you.
Exactly.
Yeah, let me feed everyone.
Yeah.
It's how I show love.
So then that carries over into the third book too. There's this one moment in Well Matched where she's got something going in the slow cooker and Mitch can smell it. And he's like, you made that for me, didn't you? And she's like, no, I made that because I'm making it. And he's like, no, it's for me. And it's totally for him. And she's just not wanting to admit it, really.
Exactly. So thinking big on the series, we know that there's one more book in the cache coming to us.
Yes.
Do you have plans for more maybe in the future?
Maybe. I really honestly, I will say that the fourth book that I'm working on, which is called Well Traveled, there's an excerpt in the back of Well Matched. That is the last book in my contract. So as far as I know at this moment on today's date, that's the last one I have going on. I'm definitely a never say never kind of person. I don't really know. I honestly don't know what I'm planning to do next. I've written these 4 books now, back to back to back. And there's this one part of me that as soon as I turn in Well Traveled, I'm just going to take a break and turn my brain off and just do some journaling and brainstorming and see what I want to write next. I think a challenge in these books is to definitely find a new angle of the Ren Fair. So each story is fresh in a way and different in a way. So I need to kind of make sure that if I do write a fifth one, that I'm not going over any, of the same ground that you guys have already seen a million times.
Right.
So that's a very long answer to say that right now I don't have anything planned, but we'll see.
Do you have any other projects in the works, or still just kind of
trying
to get through this and then you'll think about
it? This, the pandemic has been just hell on creativity.
Everyone.
The Well Matched I wrote mostly during the pandemic, during 2020, and I don't want to say it was easy, but it was actually very comforting to have a third book in a series. So I had characters that I knew very well already, and that I knew I had their story ready to go. So I was super psyched to write about them. So their voices came pretty easily to me, and it was a fun story to write for the most part. And just, I felt like 2020, like we all kind of buckled down and like got stuff done that we needed to get done. And now that it's stretched over into another year, where we really thought the pandemic would be over.
It's kind of like,
we're just all
I'm
tired.
throwing my hands up. I'm going to hide in the corner until it's
tired.
done.
We thought we thought it would be like a short like sprint, and it's become like the longest marathon in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's been part of the problem. So all that to say that creativity has been difficult. So writing book 4 has taken me a while. I've actually had to get an extension to get it written. But so that to say that no, I don't really have any other. I have some ideas in the back of my head of some things that I would like to write, but I let those things kind of percolate in the back of my mind while I'm writing the thing that I'm writing. And then once that's done, then I'll kind of turn to these ideas and see if any of them are like connectable. Like I'll have, like say a couple of names, and then I'll have like a situation, and I'll have a couple lines of dialogue or something just sort of rattling around. And then I'll sort of sit there and say, okay, do any of these pieces fit into a puzzle, or are these all 3 separate ideas? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So right now I just have a couple of little unconnected ideas that are just sort of rattling around back there, and I'm just going to let them do that for a while, like a rock tumbler.
Yeah.
It's what you have to do.
Happening.
That makes sense.
Because you can't force another book when you don't know what you're going to do, because it's like, I remember I was talking to my critique partners a while ago, and I'm like, I don't know what I want to do next. And they were like, do what you've always done. Wait for, wait for that idea to just sit there, and then you have everything. So and the pandemic has just thrown everything into sort of chaos, especially for creative people, where it's like, this is already a solitary endeavor, but then you throw a global pandemic into the mix, and now it's like no one knows what's going on, in terms of their own creative energy, because all of our creative energy is spent in other places. Mm-hmm. And so it's just this thing that we have to learn to manage. And unfortunately, we don't know when the ending of that management is going to be. So
and that makes it harder because there's not an end date.
Yeah. And you're so right, where it's just sort of wait for the idea. But of course, while you're waiting for that idea, you're sitting there going like, is this ever going to happen again? Like, I've run out of ideas. I have no ideas. So, and I admit that while I was working on stuff this year, I thought, I've got nothing next. So there's nothing in the tank. Like, I have no clue. And then like a month ago or so, like all of a sudden I started having some memories of things that have happened to me in the past, and just some little just tropes and thoughts and stuff starting. And I was like, oh, wait, this could be something. So I wrote down just some notes, and I'm like, I'm going to play with that later. And I was like, okay, at least there's something. At least things are starting to sprout where they weren't before. So that gave me a little bit of hope that I'm, the well is not completely dry.
Now, what made you want to write romance over any other sort of genre, other than the fact that you had kind of experienced a Ren Fair?
I've always been a romance reader. I started reading romance novels in college, and it was just always kind of a really fun escape.
So who inspired you, I guess?
Oh God. I know I used to grab I went to college in the early 90s. So I would grab those bodice ripper type, cover books. And I had a train ride. I went to school in Rhode Island for a while, and I would take the train from Rhode Island back to Virginia. And it was about a 12-hour trip. And I would just, and then my brain was just, fried, because it was, finals were over or whatever. I was going home for Christmas. So I would just grab, 2 or 3 of those, bodice ripper type books and just read them on the train. And then one time a nun sat down next to me, and then I could not read my bodice ripper because I just felt way too self-conscious. But because I was 19 years old and did not know yet how to own the things that I love to do. So I needed to channel Stacy there. But I just I'm trying to remember.
I don't know that at 19 I could have channeled Stacey.
No, not the nun sitting there.
Not sitting next to a nun or like a little Mormon missionary boy. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, no, couldn't do it. So so I forget. I don't remember what I did, but I remember being so upset, or like maybe could I angle myself away from her or something. And I'm trying to remember who it was that I read back then, and I can't remember, but I know like when I really started thinking about writing, Jennifer Cruzy was a big influence, just as far as she writes very, very funny romances. And she writes a lot of ones with like friend groups, that are very supportive of each other. Not just friend groups for the women, but friend groups for the men, and just very supportive casts of people. And so that was definitely a big influence when I started writing. For a long time, I was trying to write a very angsty ghost story. I remember at one point, and it was not very good, but, I put it aside one year for NaNoWriMo, and I decided I'm going to write a romance because I like romance. So I wrote a story for NaNoWriMo, and it was so much fun. It was the most fun I'd ever had writing. So I just decided to keep with romance. And so that's what I did.
There you go.
Nice.
So, now that we've read Well Matched and we're sad because we don't know when we're getting Well Traveled.
It's next
What
fall.
do you recommend to people who want something to read in the meantime?
Well, if you want to read something nerdy, I definitely recommend Olivia Dade. If you haven't read, spoiler alert, fat heroine, fan fiction, cosplay. It's so good. She's such a good writer. And the next book in that series is called, I think it's called All the Feels.
All the
Feels. And that comes out in a couple of weeks, I think. It was supposed to come out, I think, this week.
Yeah, originally it was supposed to come out like yesterday.
Yeah.
It got pushed back a couple of weeks because
publishing
and everybody's getting pushed back right now. It's just the thing right now.
Yeah. So I definitely recommend her. Her books are they're very funny. She's very funny. She's very clever. The books are very sexy. Really great, just very, very human people, and very relatable human characters. I love that. I always recommend Kate Claiborne, anything she writes. Love Lettering was a beautiful, beautiful book. And what was the other one? Love at First was her newest one, was really good. What else have I been reading lately? So like a Snyder, Big Bad Wolf, which is about the paranormal.
I have that one. I've been meaning to read it. I need to pick it up now.
The sequel to that one just came out yesterday too, Pretty Little Liars. So, and that's just a really fun, paranormal romance, shifters and stuff. And her world building is just incredible. What else am I reading right now? I'm trying to think of what I have on my nightstand stacked up to read.
Mm-hmm. While you think of that, Jean wants to know if you need to read them in order.
I think it helps, but I have seen a couple of people say that they read Well Matched first and they liked it and they were just fine. I really do try very hard to make it accessible that way, where if you pick up a book out of order, you'll definitely get, I think, more out of it if you read it in order, just because, the character, the main character.
You won't get the Easter eggs so much if you don't read it in order. Yeah.
But so like the characters of the first and second books are supporting characters in the third book and on and on. But I think that it isn't. I try very much to write it so it's not strictly necessary to read it in order. What was it? Oh, and then in books I'm reading, I think the other things on my TBR, I have Neon Gods by Katie Robert. I haven't read yet, but it's on my nightstand.
It's so good.
I love her. And oh God, the new Kit Rocha one. Is it Devil You Know? Devil You Know is the second one. Now I can't remember. It was Devil You Know, but Devil You Know was the second one. Which is post-apocalyptic mercenary librarians. So
wow.
The first one was really fun. It was, what did they say? It was like Orphan Black meets the Avengers or something like that. It's very interesting. It's cool. It's very, very cool. And they write really good, really sexy stuff too. So those are my off the top of my head recommendations.
So a question that I wasn't sure how to ask, but you just kind of led into it. How did you decide your steam level for your books? Because I do feel like they're a little bit different in each.
With
Mitch and April being the steamiest level.
Well, I mean, I figure April's got some pent up energy. So, and she finally got her hands on Mitch. And so I figure she gets as much as she wants, So it's a little steamier than the others.
I'm not complaining. I like my steam, so like I'm not mad.
I'm an open door writer, and I prefer to read open door romances. Mm-hmm. I like writing, and I like writing, I would say explicit open door, but it's not insanely, I wouldn't call it erotica by any means.
No.
But it's definitely open door. And I think as far as deciding the steam level, it depends on the characters. And as far as writing as a craft and writing romance as a craft, I think one of the more interesting things to figure out as a romance writer is how your two lead characters have sex, because that tells you a lot about them as people. Mm-hmm. So that's going to also fall in with determining the steam level. It's just who they are, how they make love is going to be a very, it's a personal thing for them. And it's going to be, going to just inform how the story gets told.
Because now, are you one of those people that had to like get pipe cleaners and decide positions and things? Because I know there are authors who do that, where they'll just get like pipe cleaners in the shape of bodies, and it's like, okay, how would this work? Would it work?
I think I draw a little bit from my theater training. I have a theater degree. So I've done choreography, worked on shows and stuff before. So I'm familiar with choreography. So in stage directions. So I think honestly, especially in first drafts, I pay so much attention to the stage directions, like who's moving where, whose hands are where, and where are their, at what point are their socks still on, and that kind of thing, that I'm so focused on that then later I've got to put in maybe I should put some emotions in here at some point too, I go back and layer that in later. But
you have to get the bones of where bodies and body parts are.
Yeah, first. Exactly. Get the
and then you can put all the emotion in there.
And then layer in that emotional stuff.
That makes sense.
But yeah, so that's kind of how I go about it.
All right. So with that said, I've got one final question for you.
Okay.
What is currently your favorite moment in the entire series?
Oh my God.
I knew that would be a fun one for you.
In the entire series.
Do we want to be nicer and ask what her favorite moment from each book individually is?
No, the entire series.
I tried. Jen,
every series has that one moment that the author just loves, and it might not make sense to anybody but them.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you, this will make sense to no one else, but it was just. It's a very small moment, and it's something that made me laugh out loud when I read it because I could see it so very, very clearly. But towards the end of Well Played, when April and Mitch take Stacy up to the Maryland Renaissance Festival to get Daniel back, they run into Dex, and Stacy goes off to go find Daniel. And Dex turns to April and kind of looks her up and down and says, "Hey," and he's very speculative, and she just says, "Absolutely not." I could just picture that so clearly in my head. Of him trying to, because I see Dex as sort of the anti-Mitch, and so he was immediately turning to her and saying, "Oh, hey, a new chick I can flirt with," and she just immediately
shut him down.
No, and
it was just no.
It was just a small moment, and it probably, I don't know if anybody else ever even noticed it, but it just, when I wrote, it was one of those things that just came out of me as I was writing. It wasn't something that I planned. And there are a couple of moments like that in the series where I didn't intend to write that particular thing, and it just sort of came out onto paper. And then I had to, okay, that's where we're going with this. And that made me laugh so hard. It was such a good April moment that's probably one of my favorites.
For me, I do remember that moment, and it's one of those things where it's like, this is perfectly in line with her character. They would never work.
No,
so God,
no, she's not happy.
We're just immediately laying down the law there. I'm like, yes, we respect you.
And I will say but to if I can do a second one,
I will allow it.
My runner-up is this another similar moment where I intended one thing and then my fingers typed something else, was in Well Met. The morning after scene with Simon and Emily, and she's looking at the family pictures and everything, and it's the moment where he's telling her about how his parents, after his brother died, his parents rented bought an RV, and they just kind of took off. She's looking at family pictures, and he comes over to her and she says, "So where's your family?" And this is where he's going to tell her, that where are your parents? And he's going to tell her that they're off traveling. But what my fingers wrote was in the basement. And he makes this joke about the fact that he keeps his parents in the basement. If they're nice, he'll let them out sometimes for holidays. And I typed it, and then I was like, oh my God, he just made a joke. Like, I was so like, I was like, you go, buddy. I was so proud of him in that moment. And it wasn't what I had intended to write. But
obviously.
But he wanted to make that joke. And I thought that was so much fun. And it was neat to me because it showed that he's comfortable with Emily now. You know,
that he can just let that cheeky side of him out more.
Yeah. And it was a very small moment, and it was a very unplanned moment, but then it just said so much about him that it's one of the things that I really, really remember and really sticks out to me.
All right. Well, Jen, we don't want to take up all of your time, but we really appreciate you coming on to my channel and talking a little bit more. As you guys know, her entire series is out. There are links down below to her website, as well as links to the books. And Melissa's YouTube channel is on there as well, if you want to follow her for more details about her book coming out next year. And thanks for watching. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.